I'm Shelley Cook. I am 45 years old. I live in Denver, Colorado, and I'm a glass child.
My name is Todd Richardson. I am 36 and I live in Owensboro, Kentucky, and I'm a glass child.
Meet Alicia Meneses-Maples.
You're here. I am so happy to see you.
Her TEDx talk has set a global viral trend about glass children. She's helped millions of hurting glass children around the world feel seen. You've seen her on NBC, CNN.com, and countless online articles. Here is your host, Alicia Meneses-Maples.
Welcome to the I See Glass Children podcast. This is the place where we boldly dig into all things related to the glass child experience. We own our stories without shame, we pursue our healing, and we claim our value independent of others' thoughts, feelings, or expectations. Because you are important to me, I have to give you a warning. Some of the things you hear on the I See Glass Children podcast may be triggering for you, especially if you experience childhood trauma and neglect. And while I will occasionally have mental health professionals as special guests, I am not a licensed therapist, and this podcast is never meant to be a substitute for a supportive and healing relationship with a professional counselor. I'm your host, Alicia Meneses-Maples. I am a glass child, and I see you. Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of the I See Glass Children podcast. I am Alicia Meneses-Maples, and we have something really exciting for you today. I have two special guests in studio with me, Shelley Valentine Cook and Todd Richardson. Say hello to everybody.
Hi, everyone.
Howdy.
So, Todd, real quick, tell us about your brother Freddie.
My older brother, Freddie, he was diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder around when he was 18 and I was 16. We shared a room together. It was very chaotic. And I also have a younger brother named Ryan, and he is 7 years younger.
Okay. And Shelley?
Middle children representing. I am the middle of three. So my oldest sister was about 2 years older than me, and I have a younger, and that was Andrea, and she was the one with special needs. She's passed now. And I have a younger brother who's about 3 years younger.
And what was Andrea's diagnosis?
So my sister was born, quote unquote, normal, and she had a diagnosis of ALL, or basically childhood leukemia, that came about the day after I was born. So from that treatment, she became intellectually disabled.
Okay. All right. Well, what we are doing today is, this is an episode for parents. Adult glass children will get something out of this as well. But what happened is, about a year ago, I posted a question on the subreddit group Glass Children, which, if you are a glass child, I encourage you, go there. It is a wonderful, safe, beautifully raw space where you can express your emotions without judgment, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
So go there and check it out. But I did this post about a year ago where I asked everybody to give input to parents, do's and don'ts. If you could give do's and don'ts to parents, what would you say? And Shelley and Todd and I are going to go through. Y'all, it's 8 pages. We are not going to read all 8 pages, but we're going to go through some of the more poignant pieces of advice that adult glass children from all over the world are giving to parents. So, Shelley, let's start with you. What did you see that stood out to you that you want to address?
There's just marks all over this paper already. A couple things. Probably the most critical for parents to think about is preparing for their high needs child for their adulthood, or as early on as possible, and foreseeing that as being an independent experience outside of their family. I had the privilege, and I know it's a privilege now because I've seen so many adult glass children who struggle with family dynamics where no one has thought about what comes after the parents are gone. So my privilege is that my parents from an early age set out for my sister to be as independent as possible, and have her own life as an adult. And that whatever that looked like, it would not necessarily be them taking care of her until the day they died. They did in some ways, but the role was always, or the thought was that their role would always be as a guardian, not necessarily as a primary caregiver. And I see a lot of parents struggle with that, and it's so difficult. You have a high needs child, to trust the universe to take care of your child. But I think that's the ultimate struggle of any parent, is to let their child go out into the world and live independently of them. And so, having that allowed me, it still didn't clear me completely of the responsibility we take on as kids, to think I have to care for my sister for the rest of my life. But at least I knew I could go to college. I could have a relationship if I wanted to. I didn't have children, but that wasn't something that I thought was impossible. So I think having that planning was huge, because then my sister, after she left high school, we already had the forces in place for her to be on Social Security disability, had everything in place for her, and she was already on the wait list at like 15, 16 for group homes. So she went in right away.
That's huge.
It's huge. And it allowed us to have a normal, I hate using the word normal because we know nothing is normal now as adults, but as kids, you thought, oh, that's what normal looks like. So it allowed me to have like a normal relationship with my parents where my sister didn't live there.
Todd, reading through these 8 pages, what comments stood out to you?
Well, there's a lot, but can I bring in one that Shelley just reminded me of? There's no such thing as normal. I think that's an important thing for parents to hear, because oftentimes they are trying to place all of their needs for the normal, right? Whatever they have or want their kids to do or what have you, onto the glass child or the person that they think can handle it or is supposed to do those things. And normal is, nobody's normal, right? No, there's no such, there's people that can function better than our siblings, right? But putting the responsibility of normal on somebody instead of be whatever weirdo you want to be, that's right. That's what
I love that.
So, but the others that I was finding in this list, and these are repeated a lot. Don't yell or shame at your glass child for defending themselves from their high need sibling. Even if the sibling doesn't understand, they don't mean it, or can't help it, it does not absolve your high needs children's actions towards your glass child. So,
God, that's so good.
My older brother is schizoaffective disorder, and there was a lot of violence and there was a lot of fighting between the two of us. Sometimes that was him and sometimes that was me, but that's a part of being a sibling, right? Siblings fight and those kind of things. But the times where fought, I got in trouble more trouble because he had a problem, right? That compounds some shame. But then also do consider alternative living arrangements if you cannot guarantee the safety or meet the needs of your glass child, your high needs child, or even yourself. If you cannot meet the needs of all your children who are your responsibility, then it might be time to separate the family for everyone's safety and sanity. I know that is a difficult decision. I could not imagine as a parent what that must feel like, but I do know that being stuck in a situation where I felt like my own safety was not prioritized, then made it so as an adult, I don't feel like that safety is prioritized.
Oh, yes. Can I interject on that really quickly?
Mm-hmm.
So, parents, this conversation is not about condemning you or shaming you or putting a guilt trip on you. This is to help you from the perspective of what we as adults would want you to do. And this point about safety and separating the family that somebody made on the subreddit, I just want to say, if it takes separating the family to keep your children safe, that doesn't mean that you have failed. It doesn't mean that you're a failure. It doesn't mean that you're less than. It means that you are doing what is necessary to provide a basic foundation of life and development for your children, which is keeping them safe. And parents, those of you who have children with high needs that have violent behaviors, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And if you have not looked at the sibling to sibling abuse that is happening, you have to look at it.
Yeah.
Okay, I have one. I'll read one. This person said, I would tell them my story. I can't have children of my own because I spent so much time raising my parents' son.
Preach.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
One more sentence. I would tell them I wasn't afraid of having a child with a disability when I thought about it. I was afraid of having a sibling of a child with a disability. I got nothing else to say after that one. Shelley.
Yeah, you know. I did not have children. I was married to a wonderful man who's since passed, but he would have loved to have children, and I was like, nope, not doing it, because I've been a parent since the day I was born.
Yes.
I don't need that in my life. I know what being a parent, the worst case scenario, and not putting this as like, being a parent to a glass child, or to a person with disabilities is bad or terrible, but it's a lifelong commitment. It's
Never
not
ends.
just like I have my kids and they go to college and they go out in the world and then they have grandkids, they bring them back and I get to play with the grandkids. No, it is like I am thinking about them all the way through every single day, every moment, even when I am dealing with my own health issues and declining. And I didn't want that for my life. I saw that future.
You lived it.
I lived it, and I lived, 19 years of it, and I didn't want it. I got out as fast as I could because I didn't want any more of that responsibility, that heaviness. And I think, parents understanding that the way that your kids see parenting and the dynamic that happens can directly affect how they see the experience of parenting later on. And so with that, I don't have children now. I have a great family dynamic where I have kids around, but I don't have any of my own.
Mm-hmm.
And that's on purpose. Yeah.
Todd, what else stood out to you?
Well, I kind of want to keep talking on that one.
Yeah,
I
right.
have a child, right? And also had those similar fears, right? And if you are a glass child but still feel like I really want to be a parent, I've always wanted to be that, or I think I could do it differently, or right, that all just what happened to us isn't guaranteed either,
Right.
So if it also, I think that parenting has really changed a lot of my perspective of what happened too, and it provided a lot of insight and wisdom, and both are perfectly acceptable.
Perfectly
There's
fine.
no reason you need kids. There's no
Right.
reason I got to give up mine, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Right? Neither one are right or wrong.
So good.
Each experience is so individualistic in that
Yep.
regard. Yeah.
And this one actually comes from the very top. Do understand that all your children need help, not just the child with high needs. So everybody needs help growing up. It doesn't matter if it's high needs or not, right? 16-year-olds have problems, 25-year-olds have problems, 35, right, et cetera, et cetera. They may look very different, right? And they may have seem very, very small in comparison to the legitimate emergencies they may be dealing with. But being excited and nervous and not really sure how to ask a girl out is just as important as trying to make sure that the right medications and the right doctor's appointments and those kind of things. So you're growing a human. That's what you're doing as a parent. You're growing an adult, and both are supposed to get that to that adulthood.
Oh, that was beautiful.
Mhm.
And to add to that, we do such a good job of hiding our pain. It's not obvious to the world. It's should be obvious to our parents, but it's not necessarily obvious to our parents. We present as though we're okay. And the point that you were reading and making is we may look like we're okay, but we're not okay. What child in whatever situation that is would be okay? As parents, you're not okay, right?
Right.
You're not
Absolutely.
okay with what's going on. So, how is it possible for your other typical children to be okay?
Right.
They're not.
Right.
They're not.
Absolutely.
I would actually piggyback on that top one. There's another in here that said, do acknowledge that if the high needs siblings are neurodivergent, then there's a real possibility that the glass child is too. And this may seem normal compared to their high needs sibling, but they should still be tested so they can learn how to manage their neurodivergence. And then also don't invalidate your child's late diagnosis or decision to get tested. I see this a lot. Personally, I was held back in second grade because I was emotionally immature. And really, I had undiagnosed ADHD in the 80s as a girl, and that just didn't happen. And so I was just super talkative and couldn't sit still, couldn't pay attention, couldn't express my needs. And it took me until I was 18, 19 to get a full diagnosis. And up until that point, I just had to kind of coast through. And, if my parents asked, how was my homework? I just said, it's fine. It's good. Like, I didn't want to add more to that household. And so I would say, just encourage your kids to be who they are. And then if you see things, help them get that help. Or if they are saying it's not working or something's off, just push a little harder or ask somebody to do that in your place. If you can't take it on because it's just too much, ask a family member to be their advocate in the school system. Ask somebody else to do that in that place. It's okay that you can't juggle all of it, but at least appoint somebody to be there for them.
I'm just sitting here like wiggling my toes going, preach, because this is so much for one or two human beings to handle.
Right.
And you don't have to handle it all, but you also can't look away from the other children that need assistance. So that idea of asking for somebody else's help to advocate, I really like that.
Mm-hmm. I don't know that I've seen this in here. I thought I saw it in one of but
it is 8 pages.
Yeah, right.
It's a little dense. Parents need to also make sure they take care of themselves because there's a caretaking, as glass children know, is super hard. Even if they're your kids, and we're talking about, it is your responsibility. But oftentimes, there have been a few posts on the subreddit that have pointed this out. Parents are not taking care of themselves either. That's why they're leaning on us. Mm-hmm. You have to take care of yourself. You have to go to therapy. You have to make sure that it's going to be, I'm not saying it's easy or that it's all going to get solved, right? But making sure that you try and making sure that you make sure your children see that you are also trying to take care of yourself teaches them how. It also shows them that you're trying to make sure that everybody has the space they need in the family as much as possible. And that's what families do.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I think parents are trying to model for their kids how to handle it all. And really what you need to be modeling is how to be a full-grown adult, including taking care of yourself, putting the oxygen on your own face first before you put it on everyone else around you. Because the kids are picking up those little cues on this is normal or this is how it works. And then as adults, we're just repeating those patterns over and over again.
And it's not selfish for you to have time for yourself.
Yeah.
It's not selfish to take a nap. It's not selfish to do those things. It's necessary, to your point.
It's the only way they'll be able to support all of those children, right? Or any chance they've got. So.
One that stood out to me is this: don't infantilize your high needs child Shelly, I heard that over there. Infantilizing them. I really like that this person explains infantilizing them is how you build resentment in a glass child. If you fail to do your due diligence as a parent to teach your high needs child the coping and life skills to help them navigate the world to the best of your ability, and you fail to teach your high needs child how to treat people well, regardless of their disorder, disease, disability, then you will pay dearly for it when your glass child grows up into a glass adult and wants nothing to do with their sibling and quite possibly you.
Mhm. I think I struggled more with that with extended family, grandparents doing that.
Infantilizing your
Yeah.
sister.
Yeah, that she wasn't capable of doing things or wasn't normal or was not able to. You know, I don't know if it's still the case now, but back then they would just shortcut explaining everything by saying she's at about a 3-year-old level. Like somebody can just be boxed in by one age and of development, and that's it. But my sister at 16 was not at a 3-year-old level. And she had boyfriends and she was off doing things and she had a wide range of interests that a 3-year-old would not be interested in, right? And so I would always spend all this time trying to tell the adults around me and explain, like, look at her as a full person. And so you feel like it's your responsibility to show this person for all that they are instead of just this 3-year-old box that all of the people have put her in. And so that we just treat her that way. Yeah.
I relate to that with my brother.
Yeah. And it's a lot of work doing that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I think that sort of appeared in my family more as enabling than I would call it infantilizing, but I think we could just go ahead and call them synonyms for now a little bit. It looked a lot more like trying to keep the peace, right? Don't make him upset. Don't let him get triggered. But but that turns into making sure that you're just giving everything he wants all the time, right? It's codependence. It's, and it is also that infantilizing because, right, people have to learn that you're not going to get what you want. You have to cope, including schizophrenics, including, right, all of the, right. And it may be very difficult for them, but it's still something they have to face. And so I think if we use the word infantilizing and then other parents of glass children are hearing, well, I don't do that, or they have responsibility or something.
That is fascinating to me. The idea that infantilizing and enabling are synonyms.
Like cinnamon
They're
rolls.
synonyms.
Yeah.
Like toasty synonym. Oops.
I mean, I think in this situation, we can view them that way, right? Because both of them are keeping somebody from growing, right? And like the change is part of life, right? And I might grow very differently than my older brother, but he can't just stay. It's not good for people to stay frozen in one space and time and age, and right, we're supposed to grow and change. And that's hard. I think every parent has to go through that. But for parents of glass children, I think it's to an extreme.
Mm-hmm. Anything else in the list stand out to you, Todd?
Don't assume that speaking with a therapist is an equivalent experience for hanging out with your parents.
Say that one more time.
Don't assume that speaking with a therapist is an equivalent experience to hanging out with your parents. You're getting attention. Therapy is good. They need to go therapy. If you're in this situation, need those things. But there is nothing that replaces getting the special moment with mom and dad and knowing that you are special to them.
And, it doesn't have to be this picture perfect fairy tale kind of thing. Just even like 5 minutes on your lap, mom and dad, just you and your glass child.
Yeah.
It's powerful.
Even if it's something where you have to make compromises to get there, where maybe not both parents can go, or you can't do it all the time, right? And you can't do it as frequently as you want. Getting it is better than not. Any amount is better. Trying is better.
Good. What else stood out to you, Shelley?
Couple things. So the first, get the time with your like the glass child. But also recognize that the therapy is good, right? Like I remember, I will never forget Dr. Brenneman, who was the school psychologist, who was my equivalent to therapy in elementary school, right? Like just talking through the relationship of what's going on at home and is that, what that dynamic looked like and how it worked. And on the flip side of that, I would say, be accountable to your own demons. So there's a lot of parents that come into this situation with their own traumas, and they're not necessarily emotionally prepared to have a high needs child. I had a father who was this way, who came in with extreme trauma from his childhood and tend to be abusive. And so he refused treatment, or any kind of therapy around that. And ultimately, that led to a much more intensive situation where he couldn't handle the overwhelming emotion or the overstimulation or over anything
Right.
in that environment. It ended up falling back down on his kids.
Okay.
And so when you add that extra element of your adult trauma into this situation, it complicates it. It makes it crazier. It just makes everything much more intense, for you, for the kids. There is a better way to do this. And it's part of it is just owning your own stuff, right? And making sure that you tackle that separately. So your kids don't have to pass that on, generationally. That's another reason why I chose not to have children. I didn't want to be an abuser. And I lived in a home where there was this high needs person who triggered an abuser. And so when you throw all those things in, you're basically setting up future generations for harm if you don't handle it right now.
Oh. Did you have something you wanted to add, Todd?
I was just digesting that. That was, yeah, no, I mean, snaps more what you said. Yeah, for sure.
I felt that.
Yeah.
Like right here.
Yeah.
I felt it.
I do think that when parents don't take care of themselves in that way specifically, I mean, this is for all children. Children feel it, but in the extreme situations of a high needs family, they feel it so much more. It's way more intense, when there's somebody like, all problems feel so much heavier in a high needs household.
Yeah.
And the parents' needs, what they're going through, hit children much, especially a child trying to keep it all together, and they notice the chaos and they're trying to control it. Matters. Like you might not always do a good job. Like you might yell some days. You know what I mean? But trying is really what I think matters. The attempt.
I could do this all day,
Right?
just this live sit down conversation. We have time for one more. Who wants to take it?
Got to go through the document.
I know.
8 pages, man.
Don't try to force a sibling to bond would be one.
Do you know that was on my list?
Oh, was
I'm
it?
so glad you chose
man,
that.
I stole yours.
No, you're good.
Yeah,
read it.
Don't try to force a sibling bond. It was stated earlier in this post that you can't make us like or even love your sibling like you do. Please also keep in mind that even in families that don't have additional complexities of supporting someone with high needs, sometimes the sibling bond is just not there. Like, as much as you want them to get along and you want the future is not guaranteed to anybody, and these are two independent people that don't have to like each other.
Yeah, I'm going to rant for a second. So I'm really hard pressed to name families, non-high needs families, where the siblings just love each other unconditionally and everything is groovy and great. But for us, there is this expectation because we have a high needs sibling We have to love them with every fiber of our being. We cannot have any negative emotions towards them because of whatever issue or disability or disease or whatever it is they have. We can't be frustrated with them. We can't fight with it. We can't do any of these things. But the rest of the world, they get to hate each other.
Right.
And I'm not saying that hate is a good thing, but it's just like there's this magical expectation that
Like a
appears.
manufactured perfection
Right.
around the family dynamic suddenly
Yep.
that accounts for all the difference.
Yep.
You know?
You nailed it. And
Yeah.
I don't know if that comes from a parent's hope that we as siblings are going to be the caretakers of our siblings in the future. And so they want us to get along now and they want the relationship to be perfect now. I could say so many things about that, but regardless, like whoever wrote that, I'm so glad that they wrote it. And I'm glad that you pointed it out because it's just it's not a realistic expectation.
It's going to make everything worse, right? If they're already upset at this person, telling them that their feelings don't matter and to forget it and invalidating it because this other person has this circumstance. No, right? Like, I understand that might be heartbreaking. That would be really hard to face, but also they grow and they change. They may not always be mad at each other. Sometimes, at least for my parents, and when I see these kind of things of like, you have to always be friends. Always is not always good. Always is probably never good. Like, humans change. I don't know. I'm sorry that your siblings aren't, that your kids aren't getting along. That's awful. But you can't just force them to like each other.
Yeah, I think later on it turns up in relationships when we don't know how to handle conflict well, and we don't know how to approach conflict. We think we should just make it all smoothed out and
Make it
move
better.
along and make it better. And then you end up completely disappointed as an adult when you just don't understand why you're not connecting with people, because your core relationship with somebody outside of your parents has been pushed to be manufactured. And you have additional responsibility to make sure they're okay. Not letting them just not get along and figure out how that feels for a while, and then figuring out how they might connect otherwise on their own.
And then adding shame at every
On top
layer
of that.
that.
Yeah, every
right?
layer of it.
Every layer of that is, I shouldn't be feeling this, shouldn't be feeling mad at this person, but I'm also ashamed of myself for giving into all of this
Right.
and doing all of it. Right. And then you are resentful at other people, but you're also resentful at yourself. It's a terrible cycle.
And now I'm accountable to their
Right, this
emotions
and this,
too,
right, and
as well as my own.
Right.
Yep, exactly.
It's like icing in the layer in between the layers of a poop cake.
Yeah.
That shame
Yep.
and that guilt
Uh-huh.
is just like, who wants to eat that?
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
No, please.
No part of that cake sounds
part of-
sounds tasty for me.
Mm-mm.
A poop and shame
Yeah.
Cake.
a poop
Yeah.
cake with shame icing.
You say that I come up with really good things to say. That was a
That was
very
pretty
particular
good.
image. I'm just saying.
I just had this visual when you said these layers, and I'm like,
Yeah.
So I don't know how not to laugh about that. So
That's great.
we're sitting here being real. God, I wish we had more time.
Me too.
Thank you. Maybe
you so much.
somehow, some way we can figure out a way to do this again. But I really appreciate your comments, and parents, I hope that you appreciate this conversation and that you can see the grace that we're giving you in this and the compassion that we're having for you in this to do something different and to take care of yourself and to take care of all of your children. Thank you, Todd. Thank you, Shelley.
Thank you.
How are you feeling? Remember, if you're struggling, reach out to a mental health professional. You do not have to do this alone. Thank you for being with me today, and don't forget to share this episode with your bestie, your therapist, your teachers, your minister. Sharing is caring, and hearing is healing. This is the I See Glass Children podcast. I'm Alicia Meneses Maples, and I see you. God sees you, and Jesus loves you.